It's 11:47 on a Tuesday night. You're standing in your kitchen in your socks, phone in your hand. The number on the screen makes your stomach drop a little. $211.13. That's what's sitting in checking. Payday isn't until Friday, 3 days out. You do the math without meaning to. Rent already cleared, the car payment hit last week, and somehow there's still only $211 standing between you and zero. Here's the part that actually gets you. You made $73,240 last year, more than you've ever made in your life, more than your father made at the peak of his career. And here you are at midnight running the same anxious math you used to run at 22 back when you were making less than half of this. Nobody warns you about this part. Nobody tells you that the raise stops feeling like a raise. That $6,103 a month can vanish just as fast as $2,400 a month used to, quietly, without a single dramatic moment you could point back to. You keep waiting for the moment when money finally feels like enough, and that moment keeps not showing up. You think back to the promotion 18 months ago. The one that came with a $9,400 raise and a new title and a night out to celebrate that felt at the time like the beginning of something. You remember exactly what you thought that night. You thought, this is it, this is where it gets easier. And for about 6 weeks, it genuinely did. There was breathing room. There was a little cushion at the end of the month that hadn't existed before. And then somewhere around week 7, the cushion just stopped being there. Not because anything dramatic happened, no emergency, no bad month, no single expense you could point to. It just quietly went back to feeling exactly like it felt before the raise, except now the number attached to not enough was bigger. This isn't a story about being reckless with money. You pay everything on time. You're not buying jet skis. You're not the guy financing a boat he can't afford. But somewhere between the deposit landing and the balance disappearing, something is happening that you can't quite see. And that's what's bothering you tonight. Because if you can't see it, you can't stop it. So instead of closing the app and telling yourself you'll deal with it this weekend, you do something different. You open 90 days of transactions. All of them. And you start reading one by one like you're looking for a stranger who's been living in your account. The first thing you notice is small. A charge for $14.99 you don't recognize. You scroll back, it's been hitting every month for over a year. Some app you downloaded once, used for 11 days, and forgot existed. You keep scrolling. Another one, $9.99. Another, $32. By the time you finish the subscriptions alone, you've counted 6 of them, totaling $87.43 a month. That's $1,049 a year, quietly leaving your account for things you're not using. You sit with that number for a second. $1,049. That's a flight somewhere. That's most of a car payment. That's just sitting there uncollected every single year, and you never noticed because no single charge was ever big enough to notice. But you keep scrolling because now you can't stop. There's the phone bill, $94 a month for a plan you upgraded 2 years ago for a work trip that ended in a week, and never downgraded once you got home. There's a cloud storage charge, $2.99 for photos backed up from a phone you don't even own anymore. There's a car wash membership, $24.99 a month, unlimited washes, and you check the app. 4 visits in the last year, $25 a month for 4 car washes. That's over $6 a wash for something you could have paid for once and walked away from. None of these decisions were stupid when you made them. That's what makes this so uncomfortable. Every single one made sense in the 30 seconds you made it. Nobody sits down and says, I'd like to pay $6.25 per car wash this year. You just never went back to check. Here's where it starts to get uncomfortable, because the subscriptions aren't even the biggest leak. You keep scrolling and you start noticing a pattern in the food delivery charges. Tuesday, $38.20. Thursday, $41.60. Saturday, $52.90. You tell yourself these are one-offs, but the data doesn't agree with you. They're not one-offs, they're a routine. You add it up for the month. $430 in delivery and takeout. Not groceries, just the convenience of not cooking. $430 a month is $5,160 a year. And you didn't decide to spend $5,160 on convenience this year. You decided individually, 40 or 50 separate times, that tonight wasn't a cooking night. Nobody sits down and budgets $5,160 for takeout. It just accumulates one tired Tuesday at a time. You think about Daniel from work. Same title, roughly the same salary. You've seen his badge come through at the same pay grade. Same commute, same city, same cost of living, hitting him just as hard as it's hitting you. But Daniel drives a car that's 8 years old, brings lunch most days in a container that looks like it's been through a war. And somehow, in a conversation last month that you didn't think much of at the time, he mentioned he'd just maxed out his Roth IRA for the year. $7,000. Just done, put away, invested. You didn't say anything at the time, but it sat with you. Because you and Daniel are making close to the same money, and you're 3 days from zero, and he's maxing out retirement accounts like it's nothing. That's not a talent gap. That's not Daniel being smarter than you. Something else is happening, and tonight, sitting in your kitchen at midnight, you're starting to understand what it is. You also think about Nathan, your old roommate from 3 years ago. Nathan got a similar raise around the same time you did, jumped up almost the exact same dollar amount. And Nathan is still, as far as you know, exactly where he was 3 years ago. Paycheck landing, paycheck gone, no real savings. A car payment renewed itself into a bigger car payment when the old one ended, because a bigger payment felt affordable once the raise hit. Same starting line as you and Daniel. Same opportunity. 3 completely different places 3 years later. And the only real variable between the 3 of you isn't income. It's whether anyone ever stopped to actually look at where the money was going. It isn't one big mistake. That's the uncomfortable truth. If it were one big mistake, you'd have found it years ago. It's dozens of small, reasonable-sounding decisions, each one too small to trigger any alarm, all of them running quietly in the background at the same time. You keep going through the statement. There's the streaming bundle you built up piece by piece. One service for the show everyone was talking about. Another for sports, another because a free trial turned into a real charge and you never canceled it. 4 services now. $61 a month combined. You could watch all 4 shows you actually care about on one of them, but you never sat down. And consolidated, because who has time to sit down and consolidate your streaming services? There's the gym membership, $54.99 a month, and you haven't been in 5 weeks. There's the buy now, pay later charge from the furniture you bought in March, still quietly deducting $67 a month at an interest structure you never actually read the terms on. There's the car insurance premium that renewed in June and jumped by $38 a month. And you never called to ask why, because calling felt like more effort than just letting it renew. None of these on their own would keep you up at night. That's exactly the point. That's exactly why they work. Your brain is built to notice the $1,200 emergency, the big, scary number. It is not built to notice $31 here, $14 there, spread across 100 small decisions a month. The threat isn't loud, it's quiet. And quiet is what makes it dangerous. Growing up, the money lessons you got were all about the big, visible stuff. Don't overspend on a car. Watch the price tag at the grocery store. Don't run up a credit card you can't pay off. Nobody ever sat you down and said, watch the $4 charges, watch the memberships that renew themselves, watch the convenience fees stacked quietly on top of other convenience fees. That kind of spending didn't really exist in the same way when your parents were your age. There was no delivery app charging a service fee on top of a delivery fee on top of a tip suggestion calculated off the inflated menu price. There was no subscription box renewing itself silently every single month until you noticed, sometimes years later. The rules you were handed were built for a different kind of leak than the one you're actually bleeding from. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth of why this is so easy to miss. You're not failing an old test. You're facing a completely new one, and nobody printed you a study guide. You keep thinking about the mechanics of it, almost like you're taking the whole system apart to see how it works. Every one of these charges was designed somewhere in a boardroom you'll never sit in, to be small enough to not be worth canceling and large enough to matter at scale. A company doesn't need you to notice $14.99 a month. They need you to not bother canceling it, and on that bet, most people lose. Not because people are careless, because the entire structure is built to make canceling feel like more effort than it's worth. One small friction point at a time. The phone tree, the retention offer, the guilt trip email about what you'll be missing. Now here's where it gets interesting. Can you guess what the actual number adds up to? Because you're about to find out, and it's higher than you think. You start adding everything up in the Notes app on your phone because at this point you need to see it in one place. Forgotten subscriptions, $87. Delivery and takeout beyond groceries, $430. Streaming overlap, $61. Unused gym, $55. Furniture financing, $67. The insurance jump you never questioned, $38. Bank fees from 3 overdrafts this year that you'd honestly forgotten about, averaging out to $19 a month. The phone plan you never downgraded, $94. The car wash membership, $25. You add it all up slowly, almost not wanting to see the total. $876 a month total, $10,512 a year. You read it twice. You are not broke. You are not bad with money in the way people mean when they say that. You are leaking $10,512 a year in amounts too small to individually notice. It has been happening quietly for at least 2 years, which means somewhere close to $21,024 has already passed through your hands and out the door, without you ever making a single conscious decision about most of it. That's the number that changes something in you, not the guilt. The guilt doesn't help anyone. It's the clarity. Because for the first time, the mystery has a shape. It's not that you don't make enough. You make $73,240 a year, which is a genuinely solid income in most of this country. It's that $10,512 of it has been leaving through cracks you never sealed. You think about what $10,512 a year actually means if you redirect it instead of leak it. Even sitting in a high-yield savings account at 4.5%, that's real compounding money. Not a fortune overnight, but a foundation. And if even half of it went toward the Roth IRA that Daniel's already maxing out, you'd be most of the way to that $7,000 limit without changing your actual lifestyle in any way that would feel like sacrifice. Not one dinner missed, not one trip canceled. Just the money that was already leaving redirected instead of lost. You let yourself picture 2 versions of the next 5 years side by side, because that's the only way this actually becomes real instead of just a number in a Notes app. Version 1 is the one you've been living. The leak stays open, the $10,512 keeps disappearing a little at a time. 5 years from now, you're making more money than you are tonight, but somehow still standing in a kitchen doing anxious math before payday because the leak grew right alongside the raises. Version 2 is smaller in the beginning and bigger by the end. The leak gets sealed this month, most of that $10,512 gets redirected instead of lost. 5 years from now, there's a fully funded retirement account, a real emergency fund, and a version of you who checks the banking app the way most people check the weather. Not out of fear anymore, just out of habit, the way most people check the weather before heading out the door. Nothing about either version requires you to earn more. That's the part that used to feel impossible and now just feels like arithmetic. Most people stop here. They see the number, they feel the sting for about a day, and then life gets busy again and the leaks keep leaking. Seeing the problem and fixing the problem are 2 completely different acts of willpower, and only one of them actually costs you anything. You decide, sitting there at 12:20 in the morning now, that you're not going to be most people tonight. The first thing you do is almost embarrassingly simple. You cancel the 3 subscriptions you haven't opened in months. It takes 11 minutes, most of which is spent on hold with one company that makes it deliberately hard to leave. Cycling through retention offers before finally letting you go. $1,049 a year stopped just like that. The next morning you call the insurance company about the premium jump. 22 minutes on the phone, most of it hold music. It turns out there was a discount you qualified for that never got applied automatically. A defensive driving course you took 2 years ago that nobody bothered to log. The rep fixes it. $31 a month back in your pocket, no less coverage, nothing given up. That same week you call the phone carrier and downgrade off the plan you never should have kept. 15 minutes, one mildly annoying retention offer you decline, and $41 a month is gone from the bill without your data ever running out once in the 2 weeks since. You cancel the car wash membership and switch to paying per visit, which, at 4 washes a year, saves you close to $17 a month without you losing a single thing you were actually using. None of these calls felt satisfying in some big cinematic way. They mostly felt tedious. But tedious and small is exactly what got you into this, so tedious and small is what gets you back out. You don't cut out delivery entirely. That would be the kind of extreme swing that lasts about 9 days before you're right back where you started, the way every all-or-nothing diet or spending freeze usually does. Instead, you set a number. 2 nights a week, not 7. You do the math on that too. 2 nights instead of an unplanned 6 or 7 brings the monthly total from $430 down to around $140. That's $290 a month, back $3,480 a year, and you still get to order the Thai food you actually look forward to on Fridays. You set up one automatic transfer. $200 a paycheck the moment it lands straight into a high-yield account you finally bothered to open. Not because $200 feels like a lot, because it happens before you see it, before it has the chance to quietly disappear into 40 small decisions you won't remember making. You also start doing something almost too simple to mention. Every Sunday night, 5 minutes, you open the app and just look. Not to judge yourself, just to look. It turns out most of the leaks in your life didn't survive being looked at regularly. They only survived in the dark, in the space between statements where a $14.99 charge could sit for 14 months without a single set of eyes landing on it. Here's the part. Nobody tells you about fixing this. It doesn't feel dramatic. There's no fireworks moment. You don't wake up one day suddenly rich. What happens instead is smaller and honestly stranger. 3 weeks later, you check your account before bed, out of habit, the same way you did that Tuesday night. And the number is different. Not because you earned more, but because less of it is disappearing sideways. And the checking doesn't feel like bracing for bad news anymore. It just feels like checking. 2 months in, you tell Daniel what you found. Not the whole story, just the number. $10,512. He doesn't look surprised. He tells you he ran the same exercise about 4 years ago, after a friend of his told him almost the exact same thing you're telling him now. And that's when he started maxing out the Roth IRA. He wasn't earning more than you back then either. He was just leaking less. That's the part that sits with you the longest. Not that Daniel is smarter or more disciplined or made from different material. He just ran the numbers before you did. That's the entire gap. Not talent, not luck, just the decision to actually look. You still make $73,240 a year. That hasn't changed. What's changed is that $10,512 of it now has a job instead of a habit of vanishing. Some of it is building an emergency fund you've never had. Some of it is sitting in that Roth IRA, growing at a rate you can't control but can absolutely benefit from over the next 30 years. And some of it, a smaller amount now, on purpose, is still going toward Thai food on Fridays because the point was never to stop living. It was to stop losing. 4 months from that Tuesday night, you're standing in the same kitchen, checking your phone before bed out of the same old habit. The balance reads $1,940. Payday's still 3 days out. But this time, the number doesn't make your stomach drop. It just sits there quietly, proving something you spent 2 years not believing. That the money was never really the problem. The leak was. And leaks, once you finally see them, are the easiest thing in the world to fix. 8 months in, the high-yield account passes $4,100, and for the first time in your adult life, you're not lying awake calculating how many days until payday. You're calculating how many months until the Roth IRA is fully funded for the year, which is a completely different kind of math to be doing at midnight. It doesn't feel like winning the lottery. It feels quieter than that, steadier, like a floor finally showed up under a room you'd been standing in for years without one. A year out, you run into Nathan at a mutual friend's birthday. He mentions, almost in passing, that he's thinking about picking up a second car payment on something nicer. You don't lecture him. You've been exactly where he is, and nobody talked you out of it with a speech. You found your own way in, at your own kitchen table, at your own 11:47 at night. All you say is, have you ever actually pulled up 90 days of your statement and read every single line? He laughs it off. Maybe he will someday. Maybe he won't. That part was never yours to control. What is yours is this. You close the banking app one more time, the way you have almost every night for the last year, and you don't check it again until morning. Not because you're avoiding the number, because for the first time in longer than you can remember, you already know exactly what it says, and it doesn't scare you anymore. It just quietly, steadily belongs to you.